welcome back to Way of the Wrench, and on today's very special episode we are going to be installing our very first mechanical toy in here, which is going to be our gear motor, and we're going to be installing a bunch of brand new Arnoz boards, and we're also going to be setting up DOF, or direct output framework. So today's going to be a good one. Stick around. Now for a gear motor on my budget build, I ended up looking around the automotive shop and finding a used Toyota windshield wiper motor, and it ended up being actually quite perfect, considering that it had the great gear sound as well as it had 2 speeds, because a windshield wiper motor has a low speed and a high speed. So you get to actually pick which one you power up and get that sound from it. Now, so I liked it so much, I ended up getting a brand new replacement Toyota windshield wiper motor, and I'll put the link down below, or it will be in my parts video for this build as well. Now, there's a couple of modifications that you have to do to this, and rather than me showing all of that, I'm just going to send you to the link to the video where I've done this already. You basically have to cut off the shaft so it's not poking out so far where the windshield wiper arm would attach, and then you take out these rubber bushings and put in some nuts and washers and wood screws so that you can space it out and install it in the cabinet. Now, you can't just throw this in here and power it up. You have to have something that is controlling this 12 volt, and in that budget build I ended up using a Sane Smart relay board. Nothing wrong with that way, it works great still to this day. However, we're going big budget this time, so we've got some very cool L'Atelier d'Arnaud boards that I want to show you that we can use to power up all of our mechanical toys. These are the Arnaud boards that are going to allow us to have mechanical toys being triggered by our dude's cab. Now the first board is the Walter driver board. This is allowing you to have up to 16 pulse width modulated outputs that are being controlled by your dude's cab. Now, if you need more than 16 outputs, this is expandable with this little dip switch here. So with just one board, you can leave them all on off. And then it says to the side, you can have up to 8 more boards if you had that many mechanical toys that you wanted to power. You just have to flip over the dip switch with this little chart in the corner. Now this cable here goes to the dude's cab, and if you had another Walter driver board, you would have another one of these JST connection cables that goes in from the data out to the data in on the second or third or fourth Walter driver boards. Now these 4 JST connections provide the outputs towards your MOS 8 or your MOS Lite boards. Now each one of these JST cables and connecting cables is going to allow us to have the 16 outputs. So each one of these is 4. So 4 and 8 are going to go to this first MOS 8 board, which allows you to have 8 outputs. And then these 8 are going to go to a second 8 on this MOS board. Now this Walter driver needs to be powered, but there is a cool little plug here that you can power from any of these other MOS 8 or MOS Lite boards that has the same JST connection, because you are supplying power to these MOS 8s, so it's just jumping it over to the Walter board for you. Now these JST cables make for easy connections here, but if you don't want these, you still can just strip wire ends and put them back into the ends here and tighten them up, and these can be disconnected or connected at will. Right now, each one of these MOS 8 boards allows you to control 8 different mechanical outputs, and they are each 8 amps max and no more than 20 amps on at the same time. And they are protected with fuses under these little black clips. They are little 5 by 20 mil glass fuses, so make sure you put the appropriate fuse for your mechanical toy. And then once again, we got the JST connections here, so we don't actually have to have wires stripped and put into these blocks. However, you can do that as well, and these do connect and disconnect. Now you have to supply positive and negative 12 volts here, and the output on this is going to be actually the ground for your mechanical toys, which we'll show in a bit. And on his website, he's got free STLs for each of these holders that you can print off and have a nice way of mounting to your cab. Now, this combination of Arnoz boards also gives you protection from any kind of electricity coming back and frying your dude's cab, because it has an optocoupler built in there to physically disconnect the electricity from going back to your dude's cab. So that's another really cool feature. Now for my build, this is going to give me 16 outputs, which should be enough to do what I need to do. However, like I said, if I do need to add more, it's as simple as just adding another Walter driver and then another MOS 8 or MOS Lite or whatever I want to add. So the expandability on this is a great feature. Now in my budget build, whenever I added a mechanical toy, I talked about the requirement of adding a diode right between the positive and negative terminals in a certain orientation, so that every time that electric motor stopped, it wouldn't have some EMF back voltage or flyback voltage coming back down the lines and frying your boards. So that's really quite important to have. Now, Arnoz actually has a board specifically designed for this purpose. And so that's this guy here, and it's a la nettoise. It's basically French for the cleaner. So his job is to clean any of that flyback voltage and prevent it from going back to your boards. And while you're at it, you can actually get the STL and print off a little holder for you too. So instead of putting diodes on my electric motors, I'm going to be using this nettoise instead. Now there isn't a lot of room left on the shelf for these 3 boards, and these Walter JST connections are a bit short. So if you have the option, go for a longer JST connector when you get it from Arnoz. But I think there's some space here on the side of the cabinet that I can use. So just make sure that I'm below where the playfield mount is going to go, and that all my wires can get to the dude's cab. So yeah, somewhere here should work. Okay, go ahead and plug in that JST connection from the Walter board to the Walter connector on the dude's cab. Now you can take a 12-volt power supply and you can hook your black lead to the black ground connection on here, and then just start putting the positive with 12.7 volts on any of these connectors, and hear what it sounds like. So that's the low speed, and that's the high speed, and I think I'm going to go on the high speed on this, and if I don't like it, I can always put it back onto there. It's just going to be a spade connector jump. Okay, this nettoise board, this is our input side, so we're going to put our 12 volt from our power supply or from a power distribution block. And then on the ground side, we are going to put it from the MOS 8 board. And then we're going to mount this as close as we can to the power supply. And then that way we've got this output side as close as we can. And we're going to put our 12 volt power to the motor and then our ground to the motor. And then this is going to mount with this 3D printed mount as close as we can to the motor. And if you can't get in here to actually undo the wires, these pop off. So you can do the wiring first, and then you can just clip this back in when you're ready. So let's put this in. Okay, that's the output side. Okay, on the output side, we're going to take the ground wire and we're going to run it up to here. And we might as well start with the very first port on the very first MOS 8, and it's going to go right inside this connection here. Now, because we're going to have a whole bunch of mechanical toys plus lighted buttons and everything running off of 12 volts, I'm going to use one of these power distribution blocks, and I've got room for it on the shelf here at the front. So I'm going to run one big fat wire, probably like a 16 gauge minimum, from here to the power supply, and then I can run off all the toys off of this. So let's go ahead and install this. All right, now it's time to run a positive and a negative wire from that power supply that we installed in a previous video up to that power distribution block. Now, technically, we could be powering up all our solenoids and our gear motor and our shaker motor and all that stuff. Not all at once, but it is potential for that. So the one wire that you're running from your power supply to your distribution block, I recommend it's a thick, fat, juicy one. I'm going to go 12 or 14 gauge. And if you want a more accurate what thickness wire you should be running, there are some charts that you can look up online. And I've also got that information already in a video that I did for power supplies for the budget build. I'll put a link up to that video above if you'd like a more in-depth explanation of what you need. All right, let's run these wires. Next up is powering up these MOS 8 boards. So we need a 12 volt positive on this side and a ground here. Now they both need power, so what I think I'm going to do is put two connections to here. One's going to jumper over to this other board and the other one's going to go to our power distribution blocks. And we've got short runs here so we can switch up to 18 gauge wire. All right, last thing we have to do is we have to put our 12 volt power from our power distribution block to the little cleaner board for this gear motor. Okay, don't forget to plug in the power for your 12 volt power supply into the green switched on outlet on your master slave power strip. All right, one last thing that I just about forgot. I got really excited about putting my part in and I forgot about my protection. So we got to put in one of these. It's a 5x20 mil glass fuse. It's going to go in the #1 spot on our MOS 8 board where we've plugged in for our gear motor. And these Toyota windshield wiper motors are about 5 amps when they're running freely, and they can spike if they're under load, which this one never will. So we should add a safety buffer about 1.5 times. So that's 7.5 amps, and they don't make a fuse at 7.5, but they do at 8. So we're gonna put an 8 amp fuse in there. All right, cool, we got the wiring done. So now it is time to go into the Dude's Cab configurator and add that MOS 8 board as an extension. We need to install DOF, or direct output framework, and we also need to go to VP Universe config website and download a config, and then we can try out our gear motor. Let's go. All right, first thing we're gonna go to our Dude's Cab shortcut for the configurator. Hello, dude. Duderino. All right, we're gonna connect to our COM3 Dude's Cab, and we're gonna go down to output cards, and we're gonna click new extension. And yes, I want to make a new card, and just so I can keep it in my mind what's going on, we're gonna name this one MOS 8. And it's technically the first board of 2, but we only have one thing plugged in. So for now, I'm just gonna have one board. I'm gonna call it MOS 8. And we can leave the ID number as 1. So when we put in a new extension on top of this one for later on, then we can call that one MOS 8 number 2 or something, and we can ID number that as 2. Okay, now we only have one wire for our gear motor in here, so we're gonna click on number 1. You'll notice that it left the rest blank. And we can name it what we want it to be so we don't forget. So that is our gear motor. It is night mode affected, so if it makes a lot of noise, we can shut that off when we hit the night mode button in our coin door. So we're gonna go send config and save to memory. And now we should be able to turn this on, and I'll be quiet so you guys can hear the motor. Oh, awesome. And you can pulse it. And we can actually do pulse width modulation, because that's what this MOS 8 board is for. So listen to the motor. So this is pretty cool. You could put that 2-stage windshield wiper motor to the top speed, and then you can just use pulse width modulation to leave it at whatever setting that sounds good for you. Sweet, we'll leave that at 100% for now. Perfect, that's the first part done. So make sure you send config and save to memory on the way out. Okay, now it's time to install DOF. So very first thing, just type in DOF download, and it'll be on mjrnet.org. So click there. and this is where you want to get it from. And I'm going to try to make a shorter version of this DOF because this new revision here should be just download, let the installer do its thing, and then you're good to go. If you are having troubleshooting issues or something like that, I will put a link above to the video that I did for my budget Vpin cab, where I showed you guys how to install DOF using the addressable LED strips. So just a slightly different way, but I go into way more detail on how to install DOF and troubleshooting. So if you're having any issues, figure that out. Otherwise, let's get this just installed. Okay, so just a note here, the newest version has an ad for the Dude's Cab, which is great. And he has combined the 32 and 64-bit installation. Now, if you are wanting to just install one and it's like the newest current thing, I would recommend you just install the 64-bit. However, if you've got some other older games that need 32-bit to function on your system, you can run both installers, just do one like I'm going to do for the 64-bit, and then when you're done, you run the 32-bit. I'm only going to show you the 64-bit and see if that's all I need, but if later, I will come back and install the other 32-bit. So no manual fix-up steps are needed, hopefully, so this should be just install. Click yes a bunch of times, and we're good to go. So scroll down. We are looking for this one right here. So Windows setup, 64-bit, MSI. Keep that. Okay, now that it's downloaded, I'm going to right-click and cut it out of my download folder and just stick it on my desktop. I'm going to right-click on this and go to Properties, and I'm going to click Unblock. I want everything to be able to work properly and not get blocked and wonder why my DOF is not working properly. So unblock that, click Apply, click OK, and then when you're ready, double left-click. You're just going to say Next. Do not change this, leave this exactly where it's supposed to, and click Install. Man, this is so easy. Special thanks to MJRNet. Without you, I would probably not even be building these things. Okay, click Finish, and that should be literally it. Okay, so now I'm going to go and actually check to see if that went in okay. So go to this PC, C drive, and direct output. There it is there. All right, that should be good to go. Okay, now on to the VP Universe config tool. So open up your browser and go to VP Universe config tool. Okay, this is the newest version 3. Go to that one. Now the very first thing you're gonna have to do is actually log yourself in. So go to Manage, and you're gonna have to sign in. And if you haven't got one yet, you're going to have to sign up for an account. Otherwise, sign up for an account and then log yourself in. Okay, so now that I've logged in, you can see this is my old budget build virtual pinball cabinet. So I'm gonna not leave that, and I have updated this and got it all working properly with this version 3.0 tool, including the any pull tool, so it automatically updates for me. Okay, so now we're gonna go New Cabinet, and we're gonna give it a name. Okay, that's my big budget Vpin. Create. So awesome that we can have double cabs or even more to be able to manage. Okay, and then it's going to give you a new API key if you need it for other actions. I think you need this for your any pool to your .ini pull tool. Okay, so you have to go over here to select it. So you're on the one that you're actually going to start editing. And then this couldn't be any easier, guys. We're going to go down to devices. You got all of these to pick from, but all we have is a Dude's Cab in here. So there we go, 1. And when you are done that, you just press Update. Okay, and then we're going to go to Port Assignments. And if it's not already here, which it is, you just go up here and pull the correct board. And this is port 1 on Dude's Cab, so we're going to call this the gear motor right here. Okay, so port 1 is a gear, and we're going to update this. And then the only other thing we have to do is we have to generate a config. There we go, there is our config file. Awesome. Okay, now we can go up here to our downloads. All right, from your downloads folder, let's take this direct output config. Let's right click and copy it. And now we're going to go to C drive, direct output. And you're going to want to drop it right here. paste, and it is zipped, so you have to unzip it. So let's extract it. And we can delete the zip. And let's take all of this, cut it, and paste it right there. Now there is some stuff already there, so you have to replace it. There you go. Okay, that part's done. So now the last thing we need to do is we need to go to C drive, Vpinball, visual pinball, and go down to VPX. And then you're going to go to preferences, configure keys, nudge, and DOF. And over here, we get to select what we want for our DOF options. So we just put in a gear motor. So right now, it's set to both, but you could pull it down and have just the sound effects from the video game, or you could have it just that electric gear motor that we put in, or you could have both. So I'm just going to put it on DOF for now. So that way, if we hear anything, it'll be just my gear motor. Click OK. And I'm always into the habit of saving if it needs it, so it doesn't. And then kick this out, which I believe is also another way of saving it. All right, so now we can start this up. So, pinup folder, we'll go pinup popper front end, and let's give this a try. Now I've muted the amps, so there won't be any game music. The only thing you're going to hear is the gear motor. So let's open this up. Okay, now I picked Cactus Canyon because at the very beginning there's a little kind of train action that happens, and that's when you'll hear the gear motor. Oh, there it is. Sweet! Beautiful. So this is a great table to be able to try for a gear motor. Look at that. The reflections of the train on the playfield are amazing. Man, this thing is so good. Okay, and one other thing I want to do is I want to see if that night mode function works. So we're going to click the night mode button, and then we'll start Cactus Canyon, and we should not hear that gear motor now. Awesome. Look at that. There goes the train. No sound. Now I can make lots of noise and play now I can play pinball all night and not wake up the kids and the wife. And I'm hoping I should be able to press that back and it comes back. It did not. I bet you have to reload the table or something like that. So let's try that. Ah, perfect. So you just have to reload the table in order to get the sounds back if you did have it on night mode. All right, that's a wrap in another video from Way of the Wrench. And at this time, I just want to say a personal thank you to all of the people that are in the virtual pinball community. Without your individual efforts and love and passion for pinball, none of this would ever have happened. You got guys like MGR Net, the original OG. If I'd never found that Bible, I would never have even started this project. MGR Net and Swiss Lizard, you guys are the creators of DOF, Direct Output Framework. We've got guys on the other side of the planet like Arnoz making super cool pinball parts like the Dude's Cab and the Moss 8 and the Walter board and the Cleaner board. Thank you very much, by the way. We've got the whole team at VP Universe with your config tool. This wouldn't happen. We've got guys like Nailbusters and our Pinup Popper, an amazing program for us. I even showed you Cactus Canyon with a VPX mod, Remux mod from Loaded Weapon. Your tables are looking amazing. Keep it up. The diner one is amazing. I could just keep going and going, and I think you get the idea. So thank you very much, and I'm just happy to be a very small part of this community, being able to help people get to this point with their own builds. Super cool. What's next? I think now that we've got DOF set up, we can make a bunch of short little videos on how to install a shaker motor, how to install a knocker motor, and all that. So look forward to that. And if you have any questions about the video, what we did, put it down in the comment section below, and I will help you out as much as possible. And if you haven't already, why don't you join us on Instagram, Way of the Wrench, so you can check out what's going on in the shop in between videos. Until next time, take it easy.